Okay, so Fire in the East by Harry Sidebottom. If anybody's been waiting for me, I am so sorry. I got everything set up, ready to go live, and then my friend Jack called me. Jack uh, lent me the password and the sign in for Disney Plus because he wanted me to watch The Mandalorian and some of the other stuff, um, and he was like, "Hey, I'm gonna be driving home from Alabama to South Carolina. Let's talk." And let's talk Thursday afternoon. And I thought that meant like 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Anyway, just before I was about to go live, he he called, and then we had this very long talk about Star Wars and the MCU and all that kind of stuff. So I'm sorry for that. So who am I? My name is Cody Seingdahl. I'm the author that you know. I'm the author of six, count them, six novels and a couple of um, nonfiction works as well, all available on Amazon. If you're interested in any of those, look down in the comments below, and you can see a link to my author page. Also, please join if you haven't joined already, join my mailing list. It's down below as well. We'll talk about more, but it's mostly I'm going to let you know when things are on special. Like right now in the United States, the Prussian Prince on Kindle. By the way, I read almost exclusively on Kindle. I only read print books when I have to, and I read them on my phone because I can read like last night, Laura spent the night, and I couldn't sleep, man. Even though I was like loaded up on whiskey and oxycodone, still couldn't sleep. So I like finished reading Harry. I almost said Turtle Dove. That's another writer. Harry Sidebottom's novel, The Fire in the East. And yes, real quick. So I'm recovering from tongue cancer, and I'm still using probably 90% my feeding tube, but my therapist is having me start with like liquid things like maybe 3 ounces of yogurt for breakfast and maybe 3 ounces of like soup at lunch and dinner to get used to swallowing things while doing formula through the feeding tube. And then Laura was over last night, and usually we have dinner together and we watch like a movie. We've been watching The Mandalorian, and but last night not only did I have soup, but I had a whiskey. Now I had just one, and I didn't finish it, but I drank quite a bit of it. It still burns because my mouth is still full of open sores and lesions from the radiation. But it was my first whiskey in months, and I didn't do the good stuff. Matthew Harvey sent me a nice bottle of whiskey. Laura bought me a nice bottle of whiskey too. I'm saving that for when I can really drink and I can have full taste. So let's talk about Harry Sidebottom and his novel, uh, the uh, Fire in the East. Fire in the East. So and I hope I'm talking clearly enough. First of all, I just got done talking for like over an hour and a half with my friend Jack, but also because my mouth is swollen from the sores that I don't enunciate very well. I'm working on that though. So Harry is a well-known novelist, and actually, and I'll save the surprise for when I read the review. And I know him. He's British. I know that he's well known and well received and very successful. And Harry's very nice to me. Like I don't know if Harry knows that I'm an author too, but he responds to me whenever we react. Calls, I mean, it's all typing, but calls me by my name. Probably the same stuff that I do as well. But Harry's a very nice man, and I'm friends with several authors that are, you know, in the upper leagues for me, uh, that are very kind to me, and he's one of them. And so I decided that a couple of them I wrote down. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna read read some of their books. So Grip Husker is one of them, and I put him on my list, my queue of novels I want to read. And it was just at that point, it was like anything Grip, and then also anything Harry Sidebottom. And Harry writes, I think, exclusively Roman stuff. Well, I'll just go ahead and say it now. Turns out Harry got his PhD in ancient history and has put out multiple nonfiction books about ancient Rome, ancient warfare, ancient siege warfare, and then decided that he would go ahead. And he's I think in Britain they call them lecturers, a university lecturer. Here, I think we call them college professors. He's a college professor, teaches. I don't know where he teaches, but the guy knows his stuff. And anyway, I put him on my list. I'm a little strapped for cash lately, so I'm reading either the 99-cent novels that I have already downloaded and haven't gotten to yet, or Griff and Harry both have books at the National Public Library that I was able to read with my phone, and they do make some royalty off of that, so I'm not completely ripping them off. But at least I'm writing reviews. But there's a problem with my reviews on Amazon, and we'll get to that. But let's get to the review first. So anyway, just to set up, Harry writes Roman stuff, and because he's so nice to me online, I decided I need to read one of his books and review it. So I did. So let's put it up here. So you can find all my reviews on my blog post. I don't know how you get to it. Probably should make that easier for people. I have this is a WordPress account. So review of Fire in the East by Harry Sidebottom. Rich, complex, and deeply textured with a cast of well-rounded characters. Ballistra is a German-born Roman officer sent by two emperors on an impossible mission to shore up the defenses on the eastern outskirts of the empire against the rising Sassanid threat. I don't know if it's Ballistra or Ballista. I gotta look that up. I can't even get that right. He's surrounded by enemies from outside and within who want nothing more than to see him fail. As the great battle looms, Ballistra must navigate a maze of spies, saboteurs, and murderers if he is to survive and save the city of Ariete. Ariete. I don't know how that's pronounced. From the overwhelming Persian horde. I really enjoyed Fire in the East. I found out that Harry Sidebottom is first a historian and college professor who has published, excuse me, several nonfiction works on ancient Rome and ancient warfare. It certainly shows in this novel with its a depth of understanding of Roman tactics, weapons, and siege machines. I learned quite a bit, which is always a goal for me in reading historical fiction. Sidebottom follows up the narrative with a historical note in which he lists his sources, some of which are his own scholarly works. There's a glossary and a list of characters that denotes the ones who are historical. The action sequences are riveting and diverse, like the naval battle against pirates, cavalry charges, artillery duels, covert night missions, and all-out siege warfare. I got sucked in immediately with the opening sequence. Fire in the East is book one of the Warrior of Rome 6-book series set in the tumultuous 3rd century Roman Empire. If the rest of the novels are as good as the first, this looks like an exciting and well-researched series. So if you're looking for authentic Roman adventure, put on your helmet, strap on your sword, and jump into the Fire in the East. And then check out Sidebottom's novel here. And of course, one of the features I like about writing my reviews on WordPress is I can embed these previews from Amazon. So you can read the first 10% of this book. There's the maps. The maps never work very well on Kindle, but yeah, it's one of the drops. And then I always check out my latest novel. Came out April 16th. We'll talk about that in a minute, but this is my novel here, The French Fiasco, written by me. And so, yeah. All right, let me put this back up here. So I read some of the other reviews of it, and I some of the I like to I mean I think it's reviewed. It's in the 4 to 5 stars. So with thousands and thousands of people rating reviewing it. And one of the things I like to do is, I read the top reviews, but then I always click like the lowest rating and see if there's any reviews down there. And so I think I don't know if there are 1 star. I think once you get past like 100 ratings, it's almost impossible not to have some 1 stars and 2 star reviews. But you want your average to be about in a 5 star rating system. You want to stay above 4, so it's above 4. Some of the negative reviews say that the first half was very slow and boring, and all of the action happens in the second half. And I will say that the siege itself. So basically, in the story, he is sent out to there's a city way on the outskirts of the Roman Empire in Syria, right on the Euphrates River. And so he's sent out there. He's got a small force with him, and he's supposed to try to raise as many troops as he can. There's some Roman troops out there as well that he's supposed to take control of and take control of the city, and prepare it for a siege, because these Persians, it's the Sassanid Empire, but they're Persians, are coming, and they're gonna sack this town, because I think the Sassanids had an occupying force, and the city dwellers rose up and massacred them. So the whole might of the empire is going to be coming, and this guy's got to go out there and try to hold them off, with the promise that one of the Roman emperors is going to come out with a larger army to relieve the siege. And so there's a prologue to it. Prologue, yeah, prologue, which is very interesting. It starts with the main character, who is a young man involved in a siege where he's on the outside, and a very surprising thing happens, and it's like, whoa. I don't really know what the purpose of that prologue, other than just kind of paint who the character is and how he got into his position. He's a German who's of German descent, a typical son of a Germanic tribal chief, whose son is kept by the Roman Empire as a hostage. But usually those hostages were treated well, and educated, and brought up in the Roman military, and they were hostages to keep like those German tribal leaders in line. So if you step out of line, we're gonna kill your son, but otherwise we're gonna treat him well. And so so he's sent out east. It's almost an impossible mission, and and there's some action that happens along the way. Like for example, I forgot how to pronounce it. Tirame, I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's the big Roman warships. They're like the ones you've seen, like Ben-Hur, where they have like over 150 rowers. In this instance, they're not slaves; they're the actual soldiers that are rowing the ship. But they have to travel from Rome all the way to Syria, and then cross the desert to get to the city. And I like the first half because the characters are really interesting, and there's a lot of intrigue, because there are spies. Like the emperor has spies amongst them. There's a traitor somewhere in the city. The main character has to deal with other personalities that are not happy that he's there. They're one of the leaders of one of the Roman legions out there resents that the main character is now in control, because the main character is a barbarian of German descent, and he is a Roman aristocrat. And so there's all sorts of intrigue and political wrangling that's in the first half that I thought was very interesting, and held my held my interest. And then quite literally, like right at the 50%, because I'm reading on Kindle, so there's really not page numbers, there's percentages. Right at the 50% is where the siege starts. And once that starts, it's pretty much nonstop action. And all sorts of things, cool things happen. Like there are night raids. There's a really cool commando raid in which one of his officers leads a near suicide mission where they're going to try to sneak into the enemy camp and kill the Sassanid emperor or the Sassanid king. Is it, I actually it's an emperor. And there's like a horde. There's tens, maybe 100,000s of not just Persians but Georgians and all sorts of different ethnic groups that have been conquered by the Sassanid Empire. What's interesting is that Harry is quite familiar with like the siege warfare and how like um, the weapons work, like the bolt throwers and the I think they're called ballistas, and I think I wrote his name Ballistra. I need to fix that if that's true. But just how like I realized because they're using ballista, and I know those are the things that like catapults that are throwing the big 20-pound weighted stones, and they're even the different artillery weapons are rated like cannons were in the 19th century. Like they have 20-pounders and 9-pounders, and I realized that they're really no different from cannons. I mean, cannons are more effective, they have more range. But especially howitzers, because howitzers are designed to shoot straight. They're designed to lob shells, and mortars even more so. And so the ballistra and the catapults are really just like howitzers and mortars before gunpowder. So gunpowder just the weapon is effectively the same thing. Just it's now we're using gunpowder instead of physics, and there's a little bit more bang for the buck. So I thought it was really interesting. I'm not a big Roman fan. I'm not against Roman stuff. Like I do enjoy Roman movies and Roman novels, but there are some people that are truly like that's their thing. They're into novels and movies about ancient Rome. There's a joke that all men think about Rome at least once a day. I guess I do too. But I'm more of I mean, I like all the ages. I mean, I like swords. I like any time where men were fighting with swords in honor. And so I like everything from like the ancient times with the bronze swords or the what do they call them, the gladius or gladi, the shorter Roman swords, through like the Middle Ages, through the Renaissance where they started having these huge swords and armor. And then even in the 19th century, which is where I write, where they have black powder muskets and sabers. So anything like that excites me. But I'm probably more about what they call the modern era, and the modern era is not what you think, or possibly not what you think. The modern era is broken up into three ages within it, or maybe it's three eras. I don't know though, but the delineation is there's the early modern era, and that is typically around 1450, around the fall of Constantinople, where like the introduction of gunpowder and the printing press and things like that, and things are changing. That's the early modern era. And then I think the high modern era, and that goes from like the fall of Constantinople in 1450 all the way up to like the beginning of the French Revolution of 1780, around 1780. American Revolution, French Revolution, right around that time. That era is called, I believe, the High Modern Era. I can't remember what that era is called, but basically French Revolution all the way up to World War One. I think all the way up to World War Two, I would call the High Modern Era. And then the contemporary modern era is World War II on. We are living as much as we feel like things have changed so much in our lifetimes, even we're still living in the same era or age of post war. We're still living in a post World War II uh, era. Nothing has happened significantly enough to change the era that we're living in. Yeah, you can talk about 9/11. You can talk about the space age and the splitting of well, the splitting atom is post World War II, but we are still in the post World War II era. So enough about that. I really enjoyed it. I love it when I read a novel that oh, Lloyd, samurai, give me the context in which you're asking that question. What do you mean by samurai? Um, I will say that Japan follows its own, actually, pretty close to the Western. I mean, they had their own Middle Ages, and they were kind of late to I guess the modern age, which we kind of forced upon. Um, so anyway, that was great. I will say that there's a little blip in the road here for me writing reviews, and I hope I might not be able to write reviews anymore on Amazon. Um, and because I've had some of the reviews I've written were rejected for community purposes, and um, uh, and every time that's happened, I resubmitted it. Oh, here we go. Uh, oh yeah, you like all things swords like samurai. Yes. In fact, Lloyd, there was a time where I was really big into Japanese culture. In fact, I used to drive my grandfather crazy because when I was like a preteen, um, I used to, I have a bokken in my room actually, a wooden samurai sword that I practice with. Um, I was obsessed with Japanese culture. I read novels about samurais. I wanted to be a samurai. I wanted to be a ninja. I took taekwondo. I had all sorts of martial art weapons. I had tonfa. I was worked on fighting with tonfa and samurai swords. I used to watch Kung Fu Theater on Channel 20 in Detroit. It used to come on every Saturday, like afternoon, I think. And then they would have like old 70s Jackie Chan style kung fu movies. Um, love the samurai. There was a book I read when I was a teenager or a preteen. I got it from the school library, and it took place in medieval Japan, and there was there was a murder mystery in which they believed like some kind of wild cat or something was clawing out the throats of the villagers, and it turned out that there had been a battle, and it was like in the snow. It was really cool. And there had been a battle, and the uh, and that the villagers had looted the dead, and so it turned out that the monster was a samurai who was taking out his revenge against the villagers who had looted the dead. And he had like the weapon was a grappling hook on a rope that he was spinning, gouging out people's throats. So I was really big into the Japanese culture. And then I don't know if you knew this, but I lived in Japan, and I taught English there for a year, and I uh, practiced kendo, which is Japanese fencing, every day, Monday through Friday at my school. After school, I would go do kendo practice with the kids, and I still have my kendo armor downstairs. And then I also took karate, so I would go to karate like 3 times a week, and then kendo every day. And I was in great shape, man. Um, I was down to like 187. It wasn't because I had cancer. It was because I was walking a half an hour to and from work every day, doing kendo every day, walking everywhere, taking the subway, eating nothing but rice and fish guts to stay alive. It was a great time. I was working on my Japanese. Watashi wa Nihongo skoshi hanashimasu. I used to be able to speak a little bit of Japanese a little bit. But yes, that was a tangent. Yes, samurais included. Absolutely samurai. Um, so I don't know where I was going with all this. Oh yeah. So I I had a couple of my reviews rejected, and from Amazon, and they're very vague because it's automated, and it just said violating of community standards. So some of them, I would take a picture, like I reviewed Lloyd's book, and I took a picture of it and uploaded it with it. And I think sometimes, like it got rejected once, or something would get rejected, and I would say I read uh, a copy from the library or something like that, and it got passed. Well, the last two books that I reviewed on Amazon got rejected, and still are rejected, and I resubmitted them, and there's nothing wrong. Um, the one I did from Griff Husker about the Saxon Dawn, and then this one, and all they say is that against community standards, but tells me to resubmit it. If you read through the community standards, they're very cautious about authors reviewing other authors, and certainly yourself. You can't review yourself, and I think there is some kind of rule about that. And I think so far I have flown under the radar, but I'm worried that they finally have figured out who I am, and that they're stripping my ability to review books on Amazon, which is really sad to me because I enjoy reading other people's work and reviewing it, and part of it is yeah, it's true. I'm trying to give a helping hand. I only give 5-star reviews. If I don't like the book, if I truly think it's a bad book, and I have read some really bad books, I don't review it. I don't give it any stars. Just because I'm not going to hurt someone else's chances. If it's a bad book, then I'm just going to leave it alone. If I enjoyed it, I either liked it or I didn't. So if I enjoyed it, 5 stars, and I'm gonna tell you. So I think they caught on to me. Now I can still give reviews and stars on Goodreads, which gets displayed on Amazon, and of course I can, for whatever it's worth, do it on my blog post, and I'm getting a following on my blog. We'll see. It's been a few weeks now since I reviewed Griff Husker's book, and it's still not showing up on Amazon. And so I think they've just kind of blocked me. So we'll see. I'm reading a book now by Bernard Cornwell, and I'll review that one, and we'll see if they allow me or not. And I hope that I haven't completely lost my ability to review people's books on Amazon, but what can you do? So what am I reading now? So I'm a fan of Bernard Cornwell. That's Laura. Okay. And and particularly the Sharp series. So I'm really a big fan of the Napoleonic Wars. And it's funny because I lived in Portugal for a while and really enjoyed it, and didn't want to come home, but knew I had to. And so I came home, and I was at the grocery store, and there was a book called Sharp's Escape, and it took place right where I was living in Torres Vedras, Portugal, and I couldn't believe it. And I read it, and I fell in love with it, and I fell in love with Bernard Cornwell. And for like a year or two, I read nothing but Bernard Cornwell. I read every single Sharp book. I read all the Uhtred books, which are the books that the Last Kingdom show are based off of. I read his Civil War series. I read his 100 Years War series. I read his King Arthur series. I read everything the man had ever written. And so now I like to read his new books as they come out, and I do. He's got a new, and the Sharp series is my favorite because I really like this Napoleonic Wars, and it's about a British soldier during the wars. He's got a new book coming out. I can't really afford them as they come out, but my library stocks them. So the new book is coming out, but the book that came out last year was available. I think it's called Sharp's Command. And the way Bernard writes, my series are truly serialized, so that the books run in a certain progression from the first one I wrote all the way to the latest one that just came out. Bernard's books are more like episodes of the A Team, in which you don't have to necessarily read them in any particular order. They they if you go to certain websites, you'll see how they're ordered in chronological order. I think the story starts in India, um, before the Napoleonic Wars and goes all the way. I think the last book takes place after the wars, where Sharp goes to like Chile to help out an old friend there. But the original 6 books, I think, were in chronological order, but now Bernard just kind of like writes novels that fits into different places in the timeline. So, like, in the very end of the story, I think Sharp goes from a private to a lieutenant colonel. Um, the book I'm reading now is called Sharp's Command, and it's somewhere in the middle of the story, and he's a major, and it's just a small story. I've read the first chapter, I think. I like it. It's Bernard Cornwell. It's Richard Sharp. And yeah, that'll be the next one. I'm reading a lot faster than I used to. So we'll see. I mean, I think I read the last book, Fire in the East, in like 2 weeks. So there's that. Okay, writing. So what's going on? So I'm gonna start writing my novella. It'll be anywhere between a short story or a novella. I haven't really decided. It'll just be as long as it needs to be. It's called underground the Underground Railroad Ball, and it's an immediate prequel to Rampage on the River, and it's Chester E. Newman. It has to do with a runaway slave in the Underground Railroad in Detroit. Chester E. Newman, if you remember from Rampage on the River, starts out the whole saga as a Wayne County Sheriff's deputy. But I won't start writing that until May 16th. And so I have all sorts of little projects I'm doing. And one of the things, oh yeah, and that story, whether it's it'll probably be a novella or a novelette, but that story, meaning it'll probably be 20 to 40,000 words. That story is going to be a free and exclusive ebook to my email list. And that's what I said in the beginning of this. Get on my email list so you can get that book for free when it comes out. Unfortunately, I'm only releasing it as an ebook. That's part of marketing. Because when it's ready to come out, I'm going to start advertising it on Facebook, and all you have to do is join my email list. And I have to set it up so that when you join my email list, you get taken to a landing page where you can download that book for free. I think I have to get a service that posts the book. And so I'll be looking into that once I get it written. But I don't want to wait till then. So I came up with an idea as a practice run. So every book of mine, all the novels have a glossary at the end of the book. And because I don't want to have to explain everything, but I know I shouldn't assume that because I want my books to be accessible to people. So there might be archaic terms, there might be military terms, there might be foreign terms that you don't know as a reader. So I created a glossary at the end of each of my novels. So what I wanted to do was, and at first I was copying and pasting the glossary from each book and just adding new entries. But it got to the point where once I got out of the Civil War and wrote Mexico My Love, I realized there were things in there that weren't necessary for Mexico My Love, but there was a lot of new things that you needed to know about the Spanish language, about the technology and the warfare of that era of that conflict. So the glossaries started becoming more specific to the book. And then, of course, once I wrote The Prussian Prince and The French Fiasco, once again, the glossaries became, I deleted things that you didn't need to know and added things that were specific to that book. So what I'm wanted to do is take all 6 of those glossaries and combine them into one master glossary, and then give that away. And as I'm calling the Engdalian glossary, and let it grow and grow as I write more and more and more. And so, and there's still going to be brief glossaries at the end of my novels as far as I got planned. So, so I had this idea. So I use AI. AI does not do any writing for me, but I do use it to help me with research. It's kind of like a research assistant. I can stop it and ask it questions. And usually I'll look up the sources and make sure, because it does lie. It does hallucinate and tell you wrong things. So you have to be very careful. So what I did is I asked it, if I give you all 6 of these glossaries, can you combine them into one? And I had so much trouble getting it to do it that it almost would have been easier if I would have just done it myself. But I'm working on that, and basically my goal is I'm going to use that as a practice to give away to my list. So everybody who's on the list is going to get it, and then all new people are going to get an opportunity to download it. This one is not going to be exclusive to the list, though. I'm going to also offer it for free on Amazon as an ebook, but also as you can get a print version, but you have to pay for it because the printing costs money. So, but I'm basically going to give it away at cost. So I think that's fair. So, so I'll be working on that. I'm working on the glossary right now, and then May 16th is where I am requiring myself to start working on the Underground Railroad Ball. How long is it going to be? I don't know yet. Like I said, anywhere between a short story to a novella, not a novel. I'm not going to let it get much past. It's never going to hit. It's never going to be above 50,000. If it is, then it will be a novel. And then after that is done and delivered, hopefully I'll start writing Black James, and Black James will probably in the fall. I'll start Black James, and I'm going to give myself plenty of time on that. I'm giving myself up to 2 years. I mean, my goal is to write a book every 1 to 2 years. I'd like to get faster, but I'm not going to push myself. There are people that put out 2 books a year, but a lot of those books just feel like content and formulaic. And then there's a lot of people put out books very fast that are very good books too. So I'm not knocking people who write fast, but for me to do the kind of work I want to do, it takes me. I'm trying to keep it under a year. I think the French Fiasco was just about 13 months. I think. Yeah, I think I'm. Yeah, just a little over 13 months. So I started March 4th of 2024, and I published it April 16th of 2025. So I'm getting better. My writing pace is getting faster. So we'll see. That's where we are right now. Cancer. So I'm beginning to eat. I think I said this in the beginning. I'm beginning to eat and beginning to drink, and we'll find out. I think around in June, I'm having PET scans to see if we knocked out the cancer or not. Hopefully, by then I'll be eating. I got a slab of ribs that I would like to smoke for 4th of July. And Matthew Harvey sent me a nice bottle of whiskey, so I hope to have that. So anyway, I'm gonna leave it there, and not babble on too long. I love you guys. If you're a writer, keep writing. If you're a reader, you should be a reader too. Keep reading. Put out those 5-star reviews. I might have lost my ability to review things on Amazon, so help me pick up the slack. And I'll be back next week with another one. I don't know what we'll talk about. I don't think I'll have Bernard Cornwell's book finished, but I'll have a topic to talk about. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.